You know, I see a lot of artists, like 98% of artists, talk about how they struggle with drawing hands. And I understand why. A lot of tutorials say, okay, so you draw a rectangle, and then you draw a bunch of lines, and voila, you have hand. And that's, I think that's ineffective and not as useful as it could be. You can probably hear my, yep. You can hear my dogs in the background. Maybe we'll talk about drawing paws too, because honestly, same concept. Like drawing anything, you have to break it up into pieces, right? Like when we're drawing a human figure, drawing your OC, it's not just this is a person, head and neck and shoulders and body. You want to zoom in a little bit. What's on the head? What are the pieces that make up a head? And you'll have your eyes and your nose and your mouth and your ears. But what does an eye look like? What are the shapes that make up an eye? And once you know the basic shapes, it's really easy to simplify from there. And it's the same thing with drawing hands. Let's zoom back out again. What it comes down to is proportions. Once you know the general proportions of each piece in relation to each other, then you can kind of extrapolate from there to do other versions of things and still make it look correct. Note that correct and realistic don't have to be the same thing. You can have something that's incredibly stylized. If it looks like it makes sense, some internal logic, it's not going to look wrong or amateur. The difference is proportions. So let's start with looking at the muscles within the hand. How does a hand move? Your hand isn't flat. Look at your own hand and try to make it as flat as possible. It's still concave, it's still like a bowl. And as you go, you'll learn which pieces you can leave out and still have it be fairly detailed. You don't want too many lines, unless you want your character to look older. Then that actually is a good trick for that, but right now we're just drawing a hand, a basic hand. It's got a thumb. Thumb's a little different than the rest of fingers, right? Because the rest of fingers, you have 3 pieces. Each one has 3 pieces. And the middle finger is going to have longer pieces, which makes a longer finger. And the thumb really has the 2, because the other third is within the hand, that piece that goes and wraps, that piece that makes it so you can actually hold on to things. Opposable. Your middle finger is going to be the longest. Sometimes the index and the ring finger are actually the same size. Sometimes the index finger is longer. Those two, it matters a little less, so long as they're both shorter than the middle finger, and then the pinky is, of course, shorter than all of them. And your thumb, because we're looking at it as 2 pieces, is going to be about 2 of those other pieces with your other fingers in terms of length. How long is your thumb in relation to that piece of thumb that's in the hand itself? Mine is about double total, right? So it's each about half. So that's another proportion to keep in mind. Keep relating pieces to other pieces, and it's going to be easier to see everything in relation to each other. You know, like your elbow, if you're just standing up, is going to be around your waist. Your forearm is about the same length as your foot. That always seems strange to people, but your foot is actually bigger than you think. Your ears are going to be bigger than you think. There are lots of tricks. You can find all these online elsewhere, too, that you measure things by other things, right? When we do figure drawing, we do that with our pencil. We'll look and say, well, how long is this person's leg in relation to the pencil? How long is that piece of pencil in relation to other pieces of this person's body? And that'll help you keep things consistent if you're drawing a character more than once. Because again, one person's proportions, it has to make sense within themselves. But I have a much shorter torso than a lot of people, right? And I have longer legs than some other people. I'm still proportionate to myself. So there are things that can change within it, and you can mess with it a little bit and make things bigger or smaller. So long as the details within a certain piece, each piece makes sense within itself. You know, your forearm will always have 2 bones, and you should keep that in mind. You need the 2 bones so you can straighten and bend your arm. But forearm itself could be shorter or longer. And then how long is that in relation to other parts of your body? You know, your hand should be able to reach your shoulder when your arm is bent. So that'll be the same. If someone has shorter arms, they'll still be able to hold their shoulder, right? It's just that their forearm and their upper arm, it's all going to be shorter. Or wider, or whatever you need to do. You'll also need to take muscles into account, and that's what we're going to do with this hand too, right? We're looking at how the muscles work, how they lay under the skin. Looking at a skeleton will help to a certain extent because the hand has a lot of bones. I never draw all of the bones. When I draw a skeleton's hand, it's just scribbles. But you understand what's in there. And that's what I mean by simplify. You can simplify even when you're going for detail. It'll still make sense. And ultimately, that's all you need. You need it to make sense. You need people to be able to read what you're writing, right? Like any handwriting. You want it to be legible. But your handwriting's still your handwriting. Handwriting. Same thing with a style. I got asked that recently. How do you find your style? And the answer is no. You can practice other styles, things that you love. You can say, you know, I love how this one artist really brings out the eyes of characters. You can practice doing eyes that way. So you can incorporate things, study the masters. But ultimately, your influences are in your brain. And you'll notice that over time. You'll see certain things are similar to other things you already love. And your handwriting, again, is your handwriting. You just need to develop the skills so that you are drawing what you want to draw in a cohesive way, in a legible way, and then it gets easier. That's the number one tip people have in general, right? It's just you practice. But the trick then, you don't want to practice what isn't necessarily useful or correct. If you're just drawing the same thing in the same way that's already not right, you're not going to learn enough to make it different. You're just going to keep practicing until that's all you do. So you don't want to do that. You want to look at the things that you have trouble with, the things that you want to change about your style or about what you can and cannot draw, like hands, and practice that specifically based on the work of others, based on anatomy. That, I feel, is very important. Not everyone agrees. But look at human beings. Look at your own hand. Take pictures of your own hand, or have someone else help you. I know that's not the easiest thing in the world. And use reference. Really look at what you're drawing. Not just look at your drawing, look at the thing that you are drawing, right? To see how things relate to other things within the piece. To see how your hand moves. How it opens, how it closes. You stretch your fingers out, 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 out. How do they move? What else moves in your arm? Pay attention to all of those things. Once you understand how an object works, it's a little bit easier to translate it into a drawing. Same thing with a flower. You understand how the petals are laying on top of each other. How a flower might move in the wind. What bends, what doesn't. And that's helpful. And you can look at, medical diagrams of a human hand. You can look at any kind of scientific illustration. That's going to give you more detail on the inside of things too. And that will also help to see how something actually is. And then from there, again, you can simplify. You can simplify, you can make it super stylized, but because you have that basic knowledge, that baseline knowledge, it's going to read. It'll be understandable. It'll be legible. People will understand what you're saying. From there, you can get real crazy with it. Just have fun, let loose. And people will still see that's a hand, and it won't necessarily be in a childlike crayon drawing way. It'll just be in that's a hand. Stylized or not. Do you say crayon or crayon? I say crayon. I just lose syllables, lose letters. It's like caramel versus caramel. I say caramel. It's a regional thing. I want to relate that back to style. It's however you were raised and what your influences were, the world around you. And then you can learn other things from other areas, Working with the idea of drawing a human. It's not just human. It's each separate part. You zoom in, you zoom in, you zoom in. Each separate part and how it relates to everything else. Like everything. Everything in our lives works this way. Even muscles, like on our own bodies, work this way. If my jaw hurts and my shoulder hurts, chances are my neck is what needs attention, right? I need to stretch, I need to massage, I need to use a heating pad, I need to take better care of my body. Neither here nor there. But it's all related, right? It's all connected. It's all moving parts within a whole, but each moving part needs some attention. So we'll draw a hand, but that means we're drawing each finger, we're drawing each joints, we're drawing the fingernails. Depending on the angle, what's the fingernail doing? You know, think of a circle. Draw an oval or a circle, and then tilt it. And what does it look like? Maybe the nail bends in a way, and you can see the arc of the nail, how it lays on top of the finger. How much of that do you see? Not what you think you see. How much of that do you actually see? And sometimes there's a difference. I want to fill in blanks a lot. And you can certainly, if you are doing a specific piece and you go, I don't like the way that looks, then change the angle. You're the artist. You are the god of this world, right? Do whatever you need to draw what you want to be drawing. But if you are going for, I want to draw the specific pose I have in mind, I have the reference for it, I want it to look identical, then actually see what you're drawing. Don't just look, see it. How is everything positioned? Not just what you think it should be, what it actually is. I honestly think good practice is going out into the world, going for a walk, and really looking at trees and birds and houses and the way windows sit in buildings. To really look and to go out there with a sketchbook and really look, really see, and translate that into a drawing. You can see that in everyday life. You can see that in your own art. It's good practice, it's good mindfulness, it's a good meditation, and it will help your art skills. So that's my spiel. And that's how I draw hands. I hope this was helpful. If you think I left something out, or if you have some other tip for people, leave it in the comments. If something is still really not right and you just desperately need to know something that I did not cover, please ask. And I will either give you an answer I already have, or I will find out an answer for you and then tell you. This was fun. Anything else you want to see me stumble across and try to draw for you? Anything else that you specifically would like to learn how to draw? Let me know that too. And rock on!